Most people believe communication is about choosing the right words, but that belief is quietly holding them back. Because real influence doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what happens inside the other person's mind while you're speaking. You've seen this before. Someone walks into a room, and without raising their voice, without trying to impress anyone, the energy shifts. People listen. They respect them. They follow their lead. And then there are others, intelligent, hardworking, full of good ideas, who speak and somehow disappear. This isn't about confidence. It isn't about charisma. And it definitely isn't about being born gifted. It's about understanding how the human brain responds to presence, structure, silence, and intention. Communication is not a talent. It's a system. And once you understand that system, everything changes. In this audiobook, you'll learn how influence actually works beneath the surface. How people decide, often unconsciously, who to listen to and who to ignore. How subtle shifts in timing, tone, and structure can create authority without force. How to speak in a way that feels calm, but impossible to dismiss. This isn't about talking more. It's about being felt. By the end, you won't just communicate differently. You'll enter conversations differently. You'll think differently about every interaction, from high-stakes negotiations to everyday moments. But understand this. Nothing here works if it stays in your head. These ideas are meant to be used. Quietly, consistently, in the real world. Because once you understand the psychology of communication, you no longer chase attention. You command it without asking. Chapter 1. Secret communication mistakes that will destroy your influence before it even starts. Most people think their communication problem is that they're too quiet, shy, or lack confidence. But the truth is much more complicated than that. Most people destroy their influence before they even say a word. Not because of what they say, but because of the signals they're subconsciously sending to the brains of others. You walk into a room. You haven't even said hello yet, but the brains of those around you have already made up their minds. Should I take this person seriously, or can I just ignore him? This decision is made in a matter of seconds, and if it's made wrong, it's hard to fix. Most people don't realize that effective communication doesn't start with words. It starts with your state of mind, your inner energy, and your presence. In this chapter, we'll explore 7 destructive patterns, mistakes that are so common they're almost invisible, but are the very things that are killing your respect, credibility, and effectiveness. Mistake number 1, reactive communication. When you're always late to the game, poor communicators wait. They wait for the other person to initiate. They wait for the space to form. They wait to see what others think. And then they just react. This pattern has a clear psychological message. I'm not the leader. I'm the follower. The human brain subconsciously respects the person who creates the framework for the interaction, not the person who simply moves within it. Reactive communication means having an opinion, but expressing it hesitantly. Starting sentences with maybe, I think, I might be wrong. Continuously explaining, apologizing, mentally retreating. Even if the content of what you say is correct, the way you present it puts you in a lower position. Power comes from initiative, not from the answer. Mistake number 2, information bombardment. When you think knowing equals being convinced, this is exactly where many smart people fail. They think that if they give more information, give more details, add statistics, logic, and explanation, others will be convinced. But the human brain doesn't work that way. The brain first feels, then it looks for logic to justify that feeling. When you give too much information, the other person's mind gets tired. Focus is lost. Unconscious resistance is created. The result? Not only is he not convinced, he also loses interest. Influence comes from purposeful simplicity, not from complexity. Mistake number 3, emotional leak. When your emotions speak faster than your words, you can control your mouth. But if you don't control your emotions, your body will give them away. Anxiety, insecurity, need for approval, fear of rejection, all are transmitted through tone of voice, speed of speech, pauses, body language. And the human brain is brutally accurate at detecting these signals. When someone feels you are unstable inside, the question arises subconsciously. If he himself is not in control of himself, how can he be trusted? Influence comes from inner stability, not from trying to look good. Mistake 4, excessive mirroring. When you lose yourself to be liked. Some people are constantly adjusting themselves to others. They change their mind. They change their tone. They create a new persona with every group. Their goal is simple, to be acceptable, but the result is the opposite. People may like you, but they don't trust you. Why? Because they don't know who you really are. Real influence comes from a stable identity, not from constant adaptation. Mistake 5, defensive communication. When you see every question as an attack, the defensive mind is always on the warpath. A simple question? He's questioning me. A different opinion? He's trying to take my power. As a result, you over-explain. You're constantly justifying yourself. You're making the space feel heavy. This behavior is tiring. And worse, it's a sign of insecurity. People with influence don't need to be constantly defended. They're calm because they know their place. Mistake 6, seeking approval. When you prefer being liked over being respected, this is perhaps the most common trap. When your goal in communication is, no one gets upset, no conflict arises, everyone is happy, you unconsciously sacrifice the truth, and people sense it. When they realize you're not telling the truth, they don't count on your opinion anymore. Respect comes from controlled honesty, not from being pleasant. Mistake 7, unconscious communication. When you don't know why you're not getting results. Most people have never learned how to communicate. They just talk, without awareness of message structure, the impact of tone, the power of silence, timing, and when they don't get results, they blame others. But communication, like any other skill, has rules, and not knowing these rules comes at a cost. Chapter 1 summary. These mistakes are not small. They shape your communication personality. The good news? All of these patterns can be changed. Once you become aware, you take back control. From this moment on, every conversation can either build your influence or destroy it. And this book is written precisely to make the first choice a habit for you. Chapter 2, the brain, snap judgments, and the moment that decides the fate of a relationship. Before you finish your first sentence, before you explain who you are or what you want, the other person's brain has made up its mind. Not in 30 seconds, not in 10 seconds, in a few heartbeats. This quick judgment is not a sign of superficiality. It's part of the brain's architecture. The human brain is built for survival, not for fairness. Over millions of years, the brain has learned to discern, in a split second, is this person a threat or an opportunity? Is he a leader or a follower? Is he trustworthy, or should we distance ourselves from him? And the same ancient mechanism today determines whether you're listened to or ignored. How does the brain read you? When you enter a space, other people's brains process multiple layers of information at once. Not logically, but subconsciously. Your body posture, the rhythm of your movements, the energy of your presence, your face and gaze, the quality of your voice, and even your silences, all come together in less than a few seconds to reach a conclusion. What level is this person at? This process relies on what psychologists call thin-slice judgments. That is, the brain builds an overall picture with a very small amount of information and then coordinates all its subsequent behaviors with that picture. Here's the important point. First impressions are hard to change. Even when new information is received, the brain tends to interpret it in a way that makes its initial impression seem correct. This is why some people are taken seriously from the start, and others, no matter how much they explain, are still not seen. Physical presence, language that speaks before words. Your first message is conveyed through your body, not your mouth. The human brain subconsciously responds to how you occupy space. People with a strong presence seem to know their place in space. They are not in a hurry. They are not withdrawn. They are not trying to be invisible. Straight, but relaxed posture. shoulders open, head along the spine. These are not gestures. They are neural signals. A stable body sends the brain a message of security and control. A body that is tense, restless, or withdrawn sends a message of doubt and insecurity. Movements are just as important. Slow, purposeful movements show that the person is not in a hurry to prove themselves. Someone who is constantly fidgeting, running, or moving around aimlessly is unconsciously broadcasting their anxiety. Face and gaze, a window into your inner state. Your face is constantly sending information, even when you are silent. Effective people have a calm, alert facial expression, neither neutral nor dead, nor overly enthusiastic. Eye contact is key. A steady but soft gaze creates trust. A fleeting gaze conveys uncertainty. An overly fixed gaze conveys threat. The natural pattern is a few seconds of gaze when speaking, a little longer when listening. This rhythm creates a sense of respect and presence without engaging in a power play. But here is an important truth. If you are restless inside, your face will give it away. No technique can hide true feelings forever. Voice, your neural signature. Voice is the most direct route to the emotional brain. Before the logical brain can activate, the emotional brain decides from the sound. Is this person reliable? Is he or she trustworthy? Is he or she worth listening to? A powerful voice, supported by breath, has a controlled rhythm, is clear and understandable, has a natural rise and fall. On the other hand, there are patterns that subconsciously destroy credibility. Speaking too quietly, excessively fast, raising your voice at the end of sentences, swallowing words. These will neutralize the impact of your speech, even if the content is excellent. The first sentence, the mental fixation point. The human brain gives more weight to what it hears first. This is called the primacy effect. That's why starting a conversation is crucial. Weak beginnings are often accompanied by apologies, hesitations, or pointless rambling, and they send a message. I don't care. Strong beginnings are simple. They are clear. They have direction. They can be an insightful observation, a clear goal, or even a question that activates the other person's mind. Leaders direct the conversation from the first second, rather than waiting for permission. Emotional alignment, the secret to real trust. When words, body, and feelings are on the same page, the other person's brain relaxes. When they're not aligned, they sense distrust, even if they don't know why. This is something that can't be faked. Trust comes from inner alignment, not superficial tricks. For this reason, controlling emotions is more important than controlling techniques. Summary. In the first few seconds, people make decisions about you. Should they listen? Should they respect you? Should they take you seriously? These judgments are inevitable, but they are not accidental. Chapter 3. The Quiet Authority Framework. How to Earn Respect Without Force. Most people misunderstand authority. They believe authority is something you take by speaking louder, pushing harder, or dominating conversations. But real authority doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush. It doesn't compete for attention. Real authority is felt. It's the calm presence in a room that shifts the energy without saying much. It's the person others instinctively turn toward when decisions matter. It's respect that exists before any demand is made. This chapter is about that kind of authority, not aggression, not intimidation, not performative confidence, but earned influence, the kind that lasts. Authority versus aggression, the core misunderstanding. Aggression is noisy. Authority is quiet. Aggression tries to control others. Authority signals control over self. The human brain is wired to read emotional stability as strength. When someone is reactive, defensive, or emotionally volatile, the brain unconsciously labels them as unsafe, regardless of how intelligent or powerful they appear. That's why aggressive people may get compliance, but rarely loyalty. Fear creates short-term obedience, not long-term respect. Authority works differently. Authority tells the nervous system, this person is grounded. This person is stable. This person can be trusted with responsibility. And once that signal is sent, influence becomes effortless. Pillar 1. Emotional self-mastery. The foundation of authority is not dominance. It's emotional regulation. People with authority don't panic under pressure. They don't rush to defend themselves. They don't escalate when challenged. This doesn't mean they lack emotion. It means they process emotion before acting. When tension rises, most people react automatically. Their tone changes. Their body tightens. Their words become sharper or weaker. Authoritative individuals do the opposite. They pause. That pause is powerful. It communicates. Confidence without explanation. Strength without threat. Control without force. In high-stakes moments, the calmest person in the room almost always becomes a leader, regardless of title. Pillar 2, internal certainty, not external validation. Authority comes from inner alignment, not approval. People who constantly seek validation, through agreement, praise, or reassurance, unconsciously communicate uncertainty, and uncertainty invites challenge. Authoritative individuals don't need everyone to agree with them. They don't collapse when someone disagrees. They don't over-explain to prove their worth. They are comfortable standing alone if necessary. This doesn't make them rigid or arrogant. It makes them anchored. When your opinions are rooted in thought rather than emotion, you don't argue to win. You speak to clarify. That energy changes how others respond to you. Pillar 3, intentional speech. Authority is selective with words. Most people talk to fill space. Authoritative people speak to move conversations forward. They don't comment on everything. They don't compete for airtime. They don't rush to prove intelligence. When they speak, there's a reason. That restraint gives weight to their voice. Silence, used intentionally, is one of the strongest authority signals available. Not awkward silence, grounded silence, the kind that makes others lean in. Pillar 4, boundaries without drama. Authority requires boundaries, but not hostility. Boundaries are not emotional reactions. They are calm standards. People with authority are clear about what behavior they accept, how they expect to be treated, where responsibility begins and ends. And when a boundary is crossed, they respond without emotional charge. No lectures, no anger, no overjustification, just clarity and consistency. This teaches others how to treat you. Pillar 5, evidence through action. Authority is reinforced by competence, not through bragging, not through status symbols, but through results. People naturally defer to those who deliver consistently, solve problems under pressure, take responsibility instead of making excuses. Competence doesn't need to be advertised. It reveals itself over time. And when competence combines with emotional control, authority becomes undeniable. Pillar 6, strategic vulnerability. True authority isn't perfection. It's self-awareness. Authoritative individuals are willing to say, I don't know. I was wrong. I need input here. This kind of vulnerability increases trust because it signals security, not weakness. The key is intention. Oversharing erodes authority. Avoidance erodes authority. But honest ownership strengthens it. Pillar 7, social intelligence and calibration. Authority adapts without losing identity. What works in a boardroom won't work at a family dinner. What works with peers won't work with subordinates. Authoritative individuals read context before acting. They adjust tone, pace, and presence, not values. They lead when leadership is needed. They listen when listening creates influence. This adaptability makes authority portable, effective in any environment. The result, magnetic respect. When these elements align, something shifts. You no longer need to assert authority. Others grant it to you. People listen without being asked. Disagreements become constructive. Your presence changes the emotional climate of rooms. This is not a technique. It's a state, and once developed, it becomes permanent. Final reflection. Authority is not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. The more regulated, clear, and grounded you become, the less effort influence requires. And in a world full of noise, the quietest strength is often the most powerful. Chapter 4. The Influence Framework. How to reshape beliefs without force, pressure, or deception. Influence is often misunderstood. Many people believe that changing someone's mind requires clever tricks, emotional pressure, or hidden manipulation. In reality, true influence works in the opposite direction. It doesn't push. It doesn't trap. It doesn't override free will. Real influence creates clarity. It removes internal friction. It helps people arrive at decisions that already make sense to them, sometimes before they consciously realize it. When influence is done correctly, the other person doesn't feel persuaded. They feel understood. This is because the human mind doesn't resist good ideas. It resists threats to autonomy. The moment someone feels controlled, rushed, or deceived, their brain activates defense mechanisms. Logic shuts down. Emotions harden. Even the best argument fails, not because it's wrong, but because it arrived the wrong way. The foundation of ethical influence begins with a simple truth. People don't want to be changed. They want to be guided. How the brain actually decides. Despite what we like to believe, decisions are not born from logic. They are born from internal alignment. Neuroscience shows that the brain evaluates information in 3 layers: emotional safety, personal relevance, rational justification. Logic only enters after the first 2 layers are satisfied. If someone does not feel emotionally safe, they won't listen. If they don't see how something connects to their life, they won't care. Only after those conditions are met does reasoning matter. This means influence is not about stronger arguments. It's about creating the conditions where arguments are welcome. Principle 1. Understand the internal compass. Every person navigates life using an internal compass. This compass is not logic. It is values. Some people are driven by stability, others by growth, some by recognition, others by freedom, contribution, mastery, or belonging. When influence fails, it's usually because the message was aimed at the wrong compass. You don't persuade someone by telling them what should matter. You persuade them by discovering what already matters. This requires attention, not tactics. Listen for emotional energy. Notice what they protect. Observe what excites them and what irritates them. The fastest way to lose influence is to argue against someone's core values. The fastest way to gain it is to show how your idea supports them. Principle 2. Trust precedes agreement. No one adopts ideas from people they don't trust. And trust is not built through technique. It's built through consistency. Trust grows when your words match your behavior. Your confidence is calm, not needy. Your interest feels genuine, not strategic. People are highly sensitive to intent. They can feel when someone is trying to get something from them. Influence strengthens when your presence communicates. I'm not here to win. I'm here to understand. Ironically, this mindset makes people far more open to your perspective. Principle 3. Meaning moves faster than data. Information informs. Meaning transforms. Raw facts rarely change minds because the brain doesn't store data. It stores stories. Stories are how humans simulate experience without risk. They allow the listener to feel consequences before committing to them. But effective stories are not dramatic. They are relevant. A powerful influence story mirrors the listener's reality, highlights a familiar struggle, shows a believable shift, ends with clarity, not exaggeration. The listener should think, that feels possible for me. When people see themselves inside an idea, resistance dissolves. Principle 4. Work with resistance, not against it. Resistance is not opposition. It's information. Every hesitation reveals a concern the brain is trying to protect against. Ignoring resistance doesn't remove it. It strengthens it. Skilled influencers treat resistance as collaboration. What feels uncertain here? What would make this safer? What part doesn't sit right yet? This approach signals respect. When people feel their concerns are heard, their nervous system relaxes. Once relaxed, they can think clearly. Sometimes influence means adjusting your proposal. Sometimes it means pausing entirely. Walking away at the right moment often increases influence more than pushing forward. Principle 5. Timing is influence. People rarely say no because they disagree. They say no because the timing feels wrong. Influence improves when you highlight real timing factors: missed opportunities, increasing complexity, emotional costs of delay. Momentum that fades over time. This is not pressure. It's orientation. Artificial urgency creates suspicion. Natural urgency creates clarity. The difference is honesty. Principle 6. Reduce friction, not desire. Even aligned decisions fail when they feel heavy. The brain avoids complexity, uncertainty, large initial commitments. Influence strengthens when the next step feels light. Instead of asking for everything, ask for movement. Instead of certainty, offer safety. Instead of risk, offer reversibility. When the path forward feels manageable, action follows naturally. Principle 7. Anchor decisions in identity. Lasting influence doesn't end with agreement. It ends with self-perception. When someone sees a decision as an expression of who they are, it sticks. This happens when you reflect identity back to them. This aligns with how you think. That's consistent with what you value. This fits the way you approach challenges. People protect their identity fiercely. Once a decision becomes part of it, follow-through becomes automatic. Influence without force. True influence doesn't corner people. It creates space. It doesn't manipulate emotion. It honors it. It doesn't overpower logic. It invites it. When you understand how people feel safe, valued, and autonomous, changing minds stops being a battle. It becomes a process of alignment. And when alignment happens, influence doesn't feel like influence at all. It feels like clarity. Chapter 5. Strategic silence. The power of what you don't say. Most people think that effective communication means talking more. It means explaining, justifying, filling in the gaps, and rescuing a conversation from silence. But the truth is that many people lose their power to communicate, not because of what they say, but because of their inability to remain silent. Silence is not the enemy of communication. Silence is a hidden tool of influence. People who are afraid of silence often unconsciously send messages of anxiety, insecurity, and a need for approval. They feel ignored if they don't speak. If they pause, they look weak. If they don't say anything, they lose control. When in reality, the opposite is true. Conscious silence is a sign of inner control. It's a sign that you don't have to prove yourself. It's a sign that you're not in a hurry. It's a sign that your presence, even without words, is meaningful. Silence, when used consciously, multiplies the weight of your words, gets others to reveal more, reduces tension without conflict, gives you time to respond instead of reacting, and most importantly, it turns the psychological power of the conversation back to you. In this chapter, you'll learn to use silence not as a vacuum, but as a hidden operating system for powerful communication. 1. The confidence pause. The silence that comes before speaking. Weak people talk quickly. Anxious people respond immediately. But confident people choose when to speak. A pause of confidence is a brief silence, a few seconds before you speak. This pause sends a powerful message. I'm not in a hurry. I'm thinking. And what I'm about to say is worth hearing. The human mind is programmed to pay attention when there's anticipation. When you pause, the other person's brain subconsciously assumes that what you're going to say next is important. This silence makes you seem thoughtful, prevents you from talking too much, improves the quality of your speech. A pause of confidence shows that you respect your words. 2. Emphatic pause. The silence that comes after an important statement. Most people drown out their important statements because they immediately start explaining, justifying, or moving on to the next point. But an important statement needs space. An emphatic pause is the silence you create after a key word, so that the meaning can sink in. When you pause after a powerful statement, the audience's brain is forced to pause. The focus shifts from responding to understanding, and the likelihood of a deeper impact increases. This type of silence is especially powerful after a bold statement, a profound question, or a shocking fact. 3. Inviting silence. When you force others to talk by remaining silent, most valuable information is revealed when you don't speak. Inviting silence is a longer pause that sends a message to the other person. The space is safe. You can continue. Most people get annoyed by the conversational void and unconsciously begin to fill it, sometimes with things they never intended to say. If you maintain the silence, Motives are revealed. Concerns are brought out. And the truth is revealed. This silence is incredibly valuable for negotiation, deep understanding, building trust, and even persuasion. 4. Processing pause. The silence used before sensitive responses. When faced with criticism, challenge, or pressure, a quick reaction is usually your enemy. A processing pause means consciously thinking instead of immediately defending. This silence prevents emotional responses, maintains control of the conversation, makes you appear mature and in control. Powerful people don't let others rush them into a response. 5. The silence of tension. When you let discomfort linger. Most people want to fix it quickly, calm it down quickly, collect it quickly. But sometimes growth happens precisely in enduring discomfort. Tension silence means not rushing to solve a problem, allowing emotions to exist, not saving others from responsibility. In negotiations, tough conversations, and serious feedback, this silence forces people to take responsibility, offer a solution, or accept the truth. 6. Reflection silence. A pause for important decisions. Silence before big decisions. Not for drama, but for clarity. This silence prevents hasty decisions, creates shared understanding, and builds real commitment. Powerful people don't rush through a conversation. They let the meaning sink in. Mastering silence. Why most people run away from it. The fear of silence is rooted in insecurity. If you are anxious, silence is annoying. If you need validation, silence is scary. But if you are calm, focused, and present, silence becomes your ally. You are not responsible for entertaining others. You are responsible for your own conscious presence. In a world where everyone talks too much, the person who knows how to be silent naturally stands out. He is remembered not just for what he says, but for the space he creates. Silence, when used consciously, makes your inner voice stronger and your voice more penetrating. Chapter 6. The Social Adaptation Code. How to read spaces and adapt without losing your identity. Some people shine in any group, whether at a boardroom, a friendly conversation, a tense negotiation, or an unfamiliar group. They always seem to know what to say, how to say it, and most importantly, when to keep quiet. It's not an innate or magical ability. It's called social adaptation. Social adaptation is the ability to understand the unwritten rules of a space and adjust how you communicate without sacrificing your identity, values, or purpose. Those who don't have the skill may be successful in one environment but utterly fail in another. And those who do have it are effective almost anywhere. Why do most people fail at social adaptation? Most people have a fixed communication style. They speak to their boss the same way they would to a friend. They use the same tone in critical situations as they do in casual situations. They bring the same energy into a formal space as they do into an intimate gathering. The result? Misunderstanding, resistance, inaction, or even rejection. Social adaptation means understanding this simple but profound truth. Every space has its own language. Principle 1. Situational awareness. Read the space before you speak. The strongest communicators observe before they speak. They don't enter a space to be seen immediately. They enter to understand. Ask yourself, who has the real power? What is the emotional space like? Tension? Calm? Anxiety? Is the space fast-paced or deep and slow? What behaviors are acceptable and what are red lines? Where do you get this information? From body language, silences, speaking order, attention spans, and reactions. Every room decides about you before you speak. So decide about the room first. Principle 2. Audience analysis. Not everyone is satisfied with the same language. Some people are soothed by logic, some by emotion, some are detail-oriented, some just want the big picture, some are risk-averse, some love to jump. If you convey the right message with the wrong language, the impact is zero. Look for the signs. Are their questions detailed or conceptual? Are they focused on risk or opportunity? Are they responding to data or stories? Social adaptation means changing the content, not the packaging. Principle 3. Recognize power dynamics. Power is not always the one with the title. There are two types of power in every space: formal power, title, position; informal power, influence, expertise, popularity. Ignoring either has a cost. With formal power holders: transparent, concise, results-oriented. With informal power holders: relationship-oriented, patient, participatory. Smart people know who to talk to and how. Principle 4, cultural intelligence. Discover the unwritten rules. Every organization, industry, or social group has its own culture. Direct discussion is a sign of power in some places. It's disrespectful in others. If you misread the culture, even the best message can backfire. Look at those who are successful in that space. How do they disagree? How formal are they? Where do they take risks and where do they be conservative? Not blind imitation. Learning from patterns. Principle 5, emotional regulation. Your energy must be in tune with the environment. A critical environment does not accept jokes. A happy environment rejects dryness. A formal environment punishes excessive intimacy. Emotional regulation means not so different that you are out of sync, not so similar that you seem fake. You remain you, but on the right frequency. Principle 6, strategic flexibility. Change the style, not the personality. Social adaptation does not mean identitylessness. You do not change your principles. You change the method. Sometimes you need to be logical, sometimes emotional, sometimes assertive, sometimes empathetic. A person who only knows one style will ultimately succeed in only one environment. Principle 7, tune in to the moment. Read the feedback live. Communication is not a fixed event. It is a living flow. If bodies move back, eyes are cut off, questions decrease, it means it is time for a change. The power is in changing direction in the moment, without confusion, without losing your composure. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of high social intelligence. When you learn the code of social adaptation, you become someone who is trustworthy in any space, is chosen for sensitive conversations, remains effective in complex situations, not because of verbosity, but because of a deep understanding of the space and people. You don't just talk well anymore, you communicate well. Chapter 7. The Self-Confidence Algorithm, Building Unbreakable Inner Confidence in Any Situation. Most people think of self-confidence as something you either have or you don't have, as if it were a genetic trait given to some and denied to others. But the truth is very different. Self-confidence is not a personality trait, nor the result of luck, nor the product of external successes. Self-confidence is a system that can be built, a system that, if you know it, you can activate in any situation, even when the outcome is uncertain, even when you are under pressure, even when everything is going against your will. The biggest misconception about self-confidence is that people think they have to succeed first before they can feel confident, when the reality is exactly the opposite. It is self-confidence that makes success possible, not success but self-confidence. The vital difference between the two types of confidence. Most people live with what could be called outcome-based confidence. They feel good when they are approved. They feel down when they are defeated. They feel empowered when others encourage them. And they doubt themselves when they are opposed. This type of confidence is very fragile because it is based on something that is never entirely within your control: outcomes and the opinions of others. In contrast, there is another type of confidence that powerful people use: process-based confidence. This type of confidence comes from the belief that I can handle any outcome, not because you always win, but because you know you have the ability to think, regulate emotions, make decisions, and adapt. Step 1. Build real competence. Real confidence doesn't last without real competence. The human mind can detect lies, even if you try to deceive yourself. That's why the first pillar of this algorithm is building real competence, not just technical skill, but the ability to speak clearly, control emotions under pressure, decision-making under ambiguity, manage conflict, and understand people. Weak people practice on things they're good at: Strong people practice on things they're weak at, and it's precisely this difference that builds real confidence. Step 2. Deep preparation, not superficial. Confidence rises when you know you're ready. Not ready in the sense of, I took a look, but ready in the sense of having seen the scenarios. Real preparation consists of 3 layers. Mental preparation. What will I do if he or she disagrees? Emotional preparation. How will I recover if I get stressed? Practical preparation. What is the next plan if the situation changes? When these 3 layers are built, your mind becomes calm, and calm is the mother of confidence. Step 3. Gather personal evidence. The human mind is not convinced by logic, it is convinced by evidence. If you don't have evidence of your own ability in your mind, the mind automatically becomes pessimistic. Most people remember failures in a magnified way and see successes as small or accidental. People with high self-confidence do the opposite. They consciously record, review, and keep their successes in mind. Every difficult conversation you handled well, every situation you overcame, every fear you faced, all of these are evidence, and these evidences become the pillars of your self-confidence. Step 4. Refine your self-talk. The voice that has the greatest impact on your self-confidence is the voice inside your head, not the one that cheers you on, but the one that constantly judges, compares, and exaggerates. The goal of this algorithm is not positive thinking. The goal is mental accuracy. Instead of, if I mess up, it's over, you learn to say, I can handle messing up. This small change makes a huge difference. Step 5. Align the body. The mind and body are not separate. A body that is hunched over, breathing fast, and moving restlessly sends a message of insecurity to the brain. When you sit up straight, your movements are controlled, and you breathe deeply and slowly. Your body tells the brain, it's safe, and the brain creates confidence. Step 6. Gradually expand your comfort zone. Confidence isn't built in comfort, but it's not built in shock either. Real growth is gradual. A little bit further than where you were before, each time. What is a little stressful today, if done, will become a habit tomorrow, and a habit will become an identity. Step 7. Align with your true identity. The strongest kind of self-confidence is formed when you are not playing a role, when you are not trying to be someone you are not. You know who you are, what is important to you, and what is not, when your behavior is aligned with your values. Even the opposition of others cannot shake you, because the root of your self-confidence is not outside. It is inside you. Chapter 8. Intelligent Influence. How to get others along without pressure. Real influence is not about force. It is not about speaking louder. It is not about insisting. Real influence happens when the other person thinks that the choice, the decision, and the motivation were theirs. People hate being forced, but they will defend their own choices. The power of influence is the art of creating a situation in which cooperation is the most natural response. The fundamental principle of influence: people don't fight ideas, they create them. Most resistance is not resistance to your opinion. Resistance is a feeling of loss of control. When you tell someone what to do, their brain goes into defense mode. But when you help them achieve their own results, their brain goes into ownership mode, and people protect what is theirs. Technique 1. Breaking the invisible frames of the mind. Most constraints are not real. They are ignored assumptions. People lock their minds without realizing it with statements like, it's always been this way here. This can't be done. We have to go with the flow. The smart hacker doesn't argue. He asks questions. Questions that break the wall. What if we didn't have to do it this way? What would be the best case scenario if there were no constraints? If we were starting from scratch, would we make the same decision again? These questions are not attacks. They are invitations. Technique 2. The power of others like you. Humans, in their ambiguity, look around, not at the truth, but at the behavior of others. But there's a common mistake. The wrong example has the opposite effect. True influence happens when the examples are relevant. The people being exemplified are similar to the audience. The result is what they want. People like you, in situations like yours, made this decision. This sentence puts the mind at ease. Technique 3. Change the perspective, not the reality. The reality is the same, but the perceptions are endless. An issue can be a threat or an opportunity, a cost or an investment, a risk or growth. A professional influencer doesn't lie. He changes the lens. Instead of focusing on what could be lost, he shifts the mind to what could be gained. When the mind moves out of survival mode, decision-making begins. Technique 4. Purposeful giving, not hidden trade-offs. Humans have a natural desire to give back, but only when they don't feel like they've been played. Healthy influence means, first, give value, without immediate demand. Useful information, real help, a valuable introduction, or even sincere appreciation. When value is genuine, cooperation comes naturally. Technique 5. Connect to previous commitments. Humans like to be consistent with themselves. If someone has already said, quality is important to me, team growth is my priority, I want to make a professional decision. Influence means showing. Your offer is to continue on the same path. Not a pressure, not a trap, but a mirror. Technique 6. Real scarcity, not artificial rush. Value is seen when it's limited, but only if the limitation is real. Opportunities that have time, have capacity, have a decision window. If explained properly, make the decision clear, not forced. The honest influencer says, if you don't act now, this is what will happen. Not to scare, but to inform. Technique 7. Emotional alignment. Decisions are emotional. Justifications are logical. If you ignore emotion, logic won't be heard. Real influence is understanding. What is he afraid of? What is he proud of? How does he like to see himself? When your message aligns with his emotional identity, resistance collapses. Quiet conclusion. Powerful influence. It's quiet. It's respectful. It's invisible. People don't say, I had to. They say, I decided, and that's the highest level of power. Chapter 9. The language of command in the moment of collapse. How to stay in control when everything is out of control. A crisis is a scene where the masks fall, where the showy conferences fade, and only one thing remains: the quality of your presence under pressure. When things are normal, everyone talks well. But when the blow comes, time is short, emotions are boiling, and the future is uncertain, most people either talk too much or shut down completely. In a crisis, words either build power or make things worse. This chapter is not about saving the situation. It's about becoming a point of stability when everything is shaking. Principle 1. Master the inside before managing the outside. In a crisis, the first person to be managed is yourself. People look at your nervousness before they hear what you have to say. Your tone, your pace, your pauses, even your breathing send messages. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean suppressing them. It means processing your emotions behind the scenes, not on stage. Someone who is in control in a crisis doesn't rush to respond immediately, pauses, even if the atmosphere is tense, doesn't let fear dictate their tone. When you remain calm, the nervous systems of others also calm down. This is when authority is born. Principle 2. Information is your enemy. If you don't provide information, people's minds will create stories, and stories are almost always worse than the truth. In a crisis, you don't have to have all the answers, but you should not cut off the flow of communication. Effective communication means tell what you know, be honest about what you don't know yet, explain what you're working on, give an approximate time for the next update. This transparency builds trust, not because everything is perfect, but because you're not hiding. Principle 3. Shift mind from panic to action. In a crisis, the human mind loves paralyzing questions. What a disaster. Whose fault was it? What if it gets worse? The communication leader interrupts this flow, not by denying the problem, but by redirecting the questions. Powerful questions in a crisis. What is the most effective action now? What is possible with the current resources? If you're going to be 10% better, what's the first step? The person who asks the right questions shifts the collective mind from fear to action. Principle 4. A crisis has multiple audiences. A fatal mistake is to speak the same way to everyone. In a crisis, the executive team needs clear and immediate direction. Senior managers need the big picture and options. The customer or audience needs certainty and security. Your power lies in not telling everyone everything and not hiding anything that concerns them. Professional communication means correct, timely, and appropriate to the audience. Principle 5. A decision, even an imperfect one, is better than indecision. Crises happen with incomplete information. If you wait for ideal conditions, the crisis will grow bigger. The communicative leader makes decisions, states the rationale for the decision concisely and clearly, identifies responsibilities, and leaves room for revision. This is a critical message. We are moving, not frozen. A firm decision, even if later revised, builds more trust than silence and suspense. Principle 6. Crisis builds long-term memory. People forget the details of the crisis, but they remember how you behaved. Did you accept responsibility? Make a promise you can't keep? Remain respectful under pressure? Your communication in a crisis leaves a permanent stamp on your credibility. After the crisis, communication doesn't end. That's when it's time to rebuild the narrative. What did we learn? What's changing? Why are we stronger next time? The person who narrates a crisis correctly turns it into a platform for credibility. Principle 7. Pressure reveals true character. In normal circumstances, everyone loves values, but in a crisis, it becomes clear which values are real. That, how you treat weaker people. Do you maintain fairness when resources are scarce? Are people more important to you than your image? All of this is seen, and it is not forgotten. If you manage a crisis humanely, transparently, and responsibly, a deeper trust is built. That would never have been possible under normal circumstances. Audio summary. A crisis is not the enemy of your strength. If you know how to communicate, it reveals your strength. People who remain calm, speak clearly, make decisions, and remain human in a crisis are the ones others look to when things go wrong. And this is the rarest form of influence. Chapter 10. The Ultimate Art of Influence. Turning ideas into action without pressure. In the real world, real influence is not achieved by force or pressure. Real influence is acting in a way that makes others want to follow your lead. This chapter is about the secret art that separates great leaders from mediocre managers, the ability to create intrinsic motivation in others without imposing orders or threats. Principle 1. Uncovering hidden motives. Every person has a mental map, a set of values, fears, and hopes that shape their decisions. Your power begins when you understand what really matters to the other person, what scares them, what drives them. When you know their motivations, you can deliver your messages like a key designed for their mind, without any external coercion or pressure. Principle 2. Strategic storytelling. People don't love ideas, but they love experiencing them in their minds. A good story engages the audience's mind, creates a sense of belonging and understanding, makes your message register with both emotion and reason. The trick is to present your ideas in tangible scenarios, have relatable characters, and show an outcome that the audience actually wants to experience. Principle 3. Framing choices. When people feel they only have one option, they resist. But when options are framed in a way that each path aligns with their goals and values, decision-making becomes automatic and fluid. Tip: limit options, but don't impose. Present each choice as an opportunity, not an obligation. Let the audience feel ownership. Principle 4. The power of silence and breathing space. Most people think they have to speak up to have influence, but silence is a powerful tool for influence. When you pause, the audience pays more attention to what you're saying. Space is created for ideas to be processed and accepted. Your sense of control and mastery is strengthened. Silence is not weakness, but mastery. Principle 5. Emotional alignment. If your ideas don't align with the audience's emotions, influence is nearly impossible. Emotional alignment means understanding how he feels, presenting your message in a way that makes his feelings seen and heard. Then using logic and data, you determine the course of action. This harmony of mind and heart makes the audience make their own decisions. Principle 6, accountability mechanism. Real influence is sustainable when your message leads to real action. Tools. Determine small, actionable steps. Clarify responsibilities. Provide success measurement criteria. By doing this, every decision made is not just an idea on paper, but creates a tangible change in behavior and results. Principle 7, sustainable influence through trust. Trust is the fuel of influence, but trust is built in crisis and under pressure, not in normal circumstances. Ways to increase trust. Make achievable promises and always deliver. Be transparent and don't hide information. Don't hide mistakes, but turn them into lessons and opportunities. Influence without trust is like a ship without an anchor. Even a small wind can blow it off course. Principle 8, feedback and constant learning. Powerful people understand that influence is a dynamic skill, not a fixed point. Every interaction, every negotiation, and every decision is an opportunity for feedback and improvement. What worked? What created resistance? What patterns of behavior led to success or failure? By recording and analyzing this data, your ability to influence becomes stronger each time. True influence is not just about exercising power. It's about getting others to follow your path willingly and willingly. In Chapter 10, we learned, discover hidden motivations, activate the mind with storytelling, frame choices intelligently, use silence for power, align emotions and logic, translate decisions into real action, build and maintain trust. Use every interaction to learn and improve. A person who practices these principles not only has influence, but their influence is sustainable, fluid, and effective. This skill is a foundation for true leadership and long-term impact in any field. Chapter 11, the charisma formula. How to create a magnetic presence, even when you're not ready. Charisma is not something you either have or you're forever without. Charisma is a state, not a fixed personality. And most importantly, it can be activated. Most people think charisma means being talkative, witty, or the center of attention. But the most charismatic people you know are usually the quietest. Their power lies not in being seen, but in feeling seen. Charisma is created when your presence changes the mood of the other person. Not by showing off, not by trying to impress, but by a certain kind of attention, energy, and intention. Principle 1, authentic presence. Charisma begins with your mind being here. Most conversations are superficial because minds are absent. Bodies are facing each other, but thoughts are wandering elsewhere. Charisma is activated when you, even for a few minutes, put everything aside and be truly present. Presence means not rushing to respond, not waiting for your turn to speak, and most importantly, not letting your mind get ahead of the moment. When someone feels that you have their full attention, their nervous system calms down, and that calmness is registered in your name. Principle 2, emotional coordination. Charisma means understanding the feeling first, then the word. People feel more than they say, and charismatic people are listeners of feelings, not just words. When someone is anxious, you don't need to motivate them. When someone is excited, you don't have to rationalize it. Charisma means listening to the emotional rhythm of the other person and being a little calmer, a little clearer, bringing them back into balance. You become the emotional leader of the space without giving orders. Principle 3, deep curiosity. Charismatic people don't ask ordinary questions. They don't ask, "What's your card?" They ask, "What's important to you about your card?" Real curiosity means not asking for an answer, but for understanding. When someone feels truly curious, they subconsciously open up, and this opening creates connection. Charisma comes from genuine interest, not technique. Principle 4, energy management. Charisma means not imposing your energy on the space. You regulate it. Sometimes the space needs calm, not excitement. Sometimes it needs assertiveness, not too much empathy. Charismatic people know they're not supposed to be energetic all the time. They're supposed to be appropriate. And because humans unconsciously mimic each other's energy, when you're tuned in, others tune in too. Principle 5, human narrative. Charisma doesn't come from big stories. It comes from telling simple moments right. An ordinary experience, if told with feeling, pause, and meaning, can last. Charismatics don't tell stories to shine. They tell stories to connect. A good story creates an image, engages emotion, and leaves something to think about. Principle 6, intelligent vulnerability. Charisma is about being strong, but not untouchable. Charismatic people don't shout about their weaknesses, but they don't pretend to be perfect either. They show a part of their path, not an open wound. This kind of vulnerability builds trust and bridges the gap without destroying authority. Principle 7, positive intention. Charisma is born from non-judgment. When you assume that people have good intentions, the space becomes safer. And in a safe space, people show the best version of themselves. This isn't naivety. It's social intelligence. People usually respond to the level of expectation you have of them. Principle 8, seeing and naming. Charisma is seeing the good and saying it in detail. No generalization, no exaggeration. When you say exactly what you saw and why it was important, the other person feels truly seen, and people are loyal to the one who sees them. Charisma is not a show. It is an inner state that changes the outside. When you are willing to regulate emotions, to be curious, to manage energy, to tell a human story, to be vulnerable, to have positive intent, and truly see others, your presence becomes effortlessly magnetic, and people don't know exactly why, but they want to be around you again. Chapter 12. Difficult conversations. How to maintain respect and even increase your influence in the middle. Most people avoid difficult conversations, not because they don't know how to talk, but because they're afraid of losing something. Respect, a relationship, a position, or the image others have of them. But the truth is, what ruins relationships isn't difficult conversations. It's long silences, unspoken words, and late explosions. The people who are seen as more powerful in their personal and professional lives are not those who never engage in conflict, but rather those who know how to remain calm, clear, and human in the midst of conflict. This chapter is about that skill, the secret principle of difficult conversations. First, let's dispel a misconception. Does a tough conversation mean fighting? No, it means seeing an issue before it becomes a crisis. Real power is built when you can bring up something uncomfortable, early, respectfully, and non-destructively. Weak people either run away or attack. Strong people invite resolution. Step 1. Set yourself up before you speak. No tough conversation starts with your mouth. It all starts with your inner state. Before any sensitive conversation, ask yourself, what am I really looking for? A problem solution? A change in behavior? Clarity? Or just an outburst of anger? What exactly will happen if this conversation goes perfectly? When your goal is not clear, your mind lets your emotions drive the show in a moment of stress. A slow breath, a short pause, and a reminder of your goal will help you take back control of your emotions. Step 2. A start that doesn't start a fight. 90% of difficult conversations are lost in the first 30 seconds. An aggressive start puts the other person's brain on the defensive, and the defensive brain won't listen or cooperate. The right start. Make your intentions clear. Declare respect. Invite collaboration. For example, I want to talk about something that's important to me, not to find fault, but to make things better. This simple statement has a profound message. You're not my enemy. The problem is our enemy. Step 3. Separate reality from perception. This is where adults separate themselves from reactive people. Reality is something that even a camera can capture. Perception is the interpretation of your mind. When you say, "You are irresponsible," you are actually making a judgment, not a conversation. But when you say, "This assignment was delivered 3 days after the agreed upon time," you are opening the space for problem solving. The power is in, first tell the truth, then give your perception in a personal and non-judgmental way. No attacks, no labels. Step 4, listen, understand, not to respond. Most people listen until it is their turn to speak, not to understand. But in difficult conversations, being heard is more important than being convinced. When the other person feels understood, their tension decreases, their resistance decreases, their mind becomes more open. Even if they do not agree with the outcome, they feel respected, and respect is a rare currency. Step 5, affirm a part of the truth. Affirming doesn't mean giving up. It means showing that I don't just see the world from my perspective. When you say, "I understand why this is difficult for you. You have every right to be concerned from this perspective," you are building a bridge, not retreating. This shifts the energy of the conversation from confrontation to collaboration. Step 6, gently guiding to solution. A difficult conversation becomes exhausting and draining if it remains stuck in a problem. Real leaders know how to ask questions that move the mind forward. What change could make this situation better? What would it take to prevent this from happening again? Is there a solution that we are both comfortable with? These questions shift the brain from defensive to creative. Step 7, no ambiguous ending. Many difficult conversations start well, but end up backfiring because they don't have a clear end. A strong ending means a clear agreement, a clear next step, a clear timeline, and most importantly, keeping your promise. Nothing destroys trust like not following through on an agreement. The hidden power of difficult conversations. When you can speak early, speak respectfully, speak without being destructive. People trust you, not because you're always right, but because they know you're not afraid to tell the truth, but you're not sacrificing your humanity either. And that's the true definition of communication power. Chapter 13. Mastering Digital Communication. How to be more real and effective than ever in a virtual world. We have entered an era in which most human influence happens not in boardrooms, but behind screens. Messages are written, not spoken. Decisions are made in silence, not in glances. And credibility is often made or broken before the first meeting. Here's the problem. Most people still speak with a real-world mindset in the digital space, and that mismatch weakens their power. Mastering digital communication means understanding this simple but profound truth. In the online world, you won't be seen unless you're designed right. Principle 1, design the message, not the message. In the digital space, your message is competing with dozens, hundreds, and sometimes thousands of other messages. If your message isn't designed, it's just another lost voice. An effective digital message isn't written by accident. From the very first sentence, it should tell the audience, "This is for you." Now, it matters. In this space, long introductions are the enemy of attention. Ambiguity is the killer of trust, and vague requests end in silence. Every powerful digital message answers 3 questions right away. Why are you saying this? Why now? What exactly does the audience need to do? Principle 2, substitute human presence. In face-to-face communication, gaze, tone, silence, and body language do the work. In the digital world, these tools are either absent or weak, so you have to intentionally create the feeling of being human. This doesn't happen with cold, formal words, nor does it happen by writing like a robot. Strong digital communication conveys a sense of, "I understand you," even if it's just a simple text. When the recipient feels seen, their brain goes out of defensive mode and into cooperative mode. Principle 3, attention economy and the rule of a few seconds. In the digital world, attention is a scarce resource, and you only have a few seconds to grab it, not because the recipient is rude, but because their mind is saturated. So, sentences get shorter. Structure becomes more important than content. Clarity trumps intelligence. Messages that are scannable get read. Messages that are a wall of text get ignored. The power in digital is an intelligent simplification. Principle 4. Building trust without being physically present. In the online world, people are thinking before they listen to you. Can they be trusted? And that trust is not built by making claims. Digital trust comes from 3 things: consistency, transparency, social cues. When your words are consistent, when you don't exaggerate, and when others take you seriously, the audience's mind is put at ease. In this space, professional silences are sometimes more powerful than talkativeness, and not writing some things down builds credibility. Principle 5. Timing the hidden weapon. In the digital world, saying when is sometimes more important than saying what. A great message at the wrong time is almost ineffective. Different people have different open minds at different times, and each platform has its own rhythm. Digital mastery means no rush, no disappearing, but a calculated presence. Enough to be forgotten, not so much to be ignored. Principle 6. Image complements meaning, not embellishes. The human mind is image-driven, but an image without meaning is just noise. In digital communication, an image should make it easier to understand, reinforce an emotion, or make it easier to make a decision. Any visual element that is just pretty but doesn't help diminishes the power of the message. Purposeful simplicity is always stronger than eye-catching clutter. Principle 7. From audience to community. One-way digital communication creates short-term influence, but interaction creates lasting influence. When you just talk, you get seen. When you listen, you are accepted. People who have real influence in the digital space ask questions, answers, and create space for participation. Ultimately, digital power does not come from the number of followers, but from the quality of the relationship. Chapter summary. Mastering digital communication means understanding this truth. In the virtual world, every word has an impact, every silence has meaning, and every message is a reflection of who you are. When you learn to be heard without shouting, build trust without being physically present, and make an impact without pressure, digital is no longer a limitation, but a lever of your power. And someone who has this skill, not only online, but in the real world, will be one step ahead. Chapter 14. The Mastery Mindset. How to become a lifelong student of human psychology. Most people seek to learn effective communication. Few people seek mastery. The difference between someone who knows a few techniques and someone who acts naturally, calmly, and effectively in any crowd at any time and in any crisis. Mastering communication is not a skill that you achieve once, and that's it. Mastery is a permanent mindset, a way of looking at people, interactions, and even your own mistakes. The mastery mindset is a deep belief that every conversation, every encounter, every silence, every failure is a lesson. People who achieve this mindset never stop, not out of anxiety, but out of professional curiosity. Principle 1. Turn life into a human laboratory. Most people talk. Dominant people observe. They don't just pay attention to what you said. They pay attention to when did you say it, with what energy, in what space, and with what degree of power. What was the other person's real reaction, not the apparent reaction? A mastery mindset means asking yourself after every interaction, even a brief one, why did that statement work? Why did that joke close the gap? Why was silence more effective than speaking? You start to see patterns. You realize that some people need security before they make a decision. Some need to be seen. Some are just looking for control. These diagnoses aren't random. They're the result of ongoing, conscious observation. Principle 2. Build a bank of behavioral patterns. Humans are complex, but not unpredictable. A mastery mindset means building patterns rather than memorizing techniques. You learn how anxious people react, where powerful people become sensitive, where defensive people lock up, where secure people open up. Over time, a human map forms in your mind, not for judgment, but for precise response choices. This is where your communication evolves from emotional to strategic without becoming artificial. Principle 3, love feedback, not approval dependent. Average people fear feedback. Mastery people thrive on it. But there's an important difference. They're not looking for big picture feedback. They're looking for actionable, accurate information. Instead of asking, was it good? They ask, where was my speech unclear? When did you get distracted? What part would you change if you were me? These questions may not stroke the ego, but they multiply skill. And more important than verbal feedback is to read nonverbal feedback, body recoil, voice change, decreasing questions, increasing implicit resistance. A mastery mindset is seeing things that others overlook. Principle 4, experiment smartly, not play dangerously. Mastery is not built without risk, but blind risk is not a sign of maturity. Professionals test new techniques first in a low-risk situation. Try out new tone in a safe group. Glue new narrative before the big stage. You become an intentional experimenter, not a chance talker. Every experiment has a question. What would change if I said this? And every result, even a failure, is valuable data. Principle 5, stealing smartly from other worlds. A mastery mindset means not being limited to communication books. You learn from therapeutic psychology, building safety, acting, controlling energy, negotiation, managing resistance, storytelling, engaging the mind, leadership, clarifying decision, but not superficial imitation, but extracting the psychological principle behind each technique. You don't say, speak like this. You say, why does this affect the human brain? That's the difference between a copycat and a master. Principle 6, purposeful practice. Not easy repetition. Most people just talk too much. They practice too little. Purposeful practice means knowing exactly where your weaknesses are, consciously challenging that area, stepping out of your comfort zone, getting feedback, correcting sometimes. That means recording yourself. Sometimes that means practicing a difficult conversation. Sometimes that means intentionally staying silent longer than you're comfortable with. Real growth is always a little uncomfortable. Principle 7, building a personal mental model. Dominant people don't make decisions in the moment. They have a framework. They know which path to take in conflict, where to start in persuasion, what to prioritize in a crisis. These frameworks don't fall from the sky. They are built from analyzing experiences. Over time, your mind will work faster, calmer, and more accurately because you've been there 1,000 times before. Principle 8, teach to consolidate mastery. If you want to truly master, teach, not to show off, but to clarify your own mind. When you teach something, the gaps in your knowledge are revealed. Your articulation becomes more precise. Your understanding deepens. And most importantly, you become an authority, not by claiming, but by conveying real value. The mastery mindset means every person a living book, every conversation an experiment, every mistake data, every success a sign of the right path. In this mindset, you are never finished. And precisely because of that, you become stronger every day. And this is the final secret of powerful communication. A true master always remains a student. Chapter 14, the mastery mindset. How to become a lifelong student of human psychology. Most people seek to learn effective communication. Few people seek mastery. The difference between someone who knows a few techniques and someone who acts naturally, calmly, and effectively in any crowd, at any time, and in any crisis. Mastering communication is not a skill that you achieve once, and that's it. Mastery is a permanent mindset, a way of looking at people, interactions, and even your own mistakes. The mastery mindset is a deep belief that every conversation, every encounter, every silence, every failure is a lesson. People who achieve this mindset never stop. Not out of anxiety, but out of professional curiosity. Principle 1, turn life into a human laboratory. Most people talk. Dominant people observe. They don't just pay attention to what you said. They pay attention to When did you say it? With what energy? In what space? And with what degree of power? What was the other person's real reaction, not the apparent reaction? A mastery mindset means asking yourself after every interaction, even a brief one, why did that statement work? Why did that joke close the gap? Why was silence more effective than speaking? You start to see patterns. You realize that some people need security before they make a decision. Some need to be seen. Some are just looking for control. These diagnoses aren't random. They're the result of ongoing, conscious observation. Principle 2. Build a bank of behavioral patterns. Humans are complex, but not unpredictable. A mastery mindset means building patterns rather than memorizing techniques. You learn how anxious people react, where powerful people become sensitive, where defensive people lock up, where secure people open up. Over time, a human map forms in your mind, not for judgment, but for precise response choices. This is where your communication evolves from emotional to strategic without becoming artificial. Principle 3. Love feedback, not approval dependent. Average people fear feedback. Mastery people thrive on it. But there's an important difference. They're not looking for big picture feedback. They're looking for actionable, accurate information. Instead of asking, was it good? They ask, where was my speech unclear? When did you get distracted? What part would you change if you were me? These questions may not stroke the ego, but they multiply skill. And more important than verbal feedback is to read nonverbal feedback, body recoil, voice change, decreasing questions, increasing implicit resistance. A mastery mindset is seeing things that others overlook. Principle 4. Experiment smartly, not play dangerously. Mastery is not built without risk, but blind risk is not a sign of maturity. Professionals test new techniques first in a low-risk situation. Try out new tone in a safe group. Glue new narrative before the big stage. You become an intentional experimenter, not a chance talker. Every experiment has a question. What would change if I said this? And every result, even a failure, is valuable data. Principle 5. Stealing smartly from other worlds. A mastery mindset means not being limited to communication books. You learn from therapeutic psychology, building safety, acting, controlling energy, negotiation, managing resistance, storytelling, engaging the mind, leadership, clarifying decision, but not superficial imitation, but extracting the psychological principle behind each technique. You don't say, speak like this. You say, why does this affect the human brain? That's the difference between a copycat and a master. Principle 6. Purposeful practice. Not easy repetition. Most people just talk too much. They practice too little. Purposeful practice means knowing exactly where your weaknesses are, consciously challenging that area, stepping out of your comfort zone, getting feedback, correcting sometimes. That means recording yourself. Sometimes that means practicing a difficult conversation. Sometimes that means intentionally staying silent longer than you're comfortable with. Real growth is always a little uncomfortable. Principle 7. Building a personal mental model. Dominant people don't make decisions in the moment. They have a framework. They know which path to take in conflict, where to start in persuasion, what to prioritize in a crisis. These frameworks don't fall from the sky. They are built from analyzing experiences. Over time, your mind will work faster, calmer, and more accurately because you've been there 1,000 times before. Principle 8. Teach to consolidate mastery. If you want to truly master, teach, not to show off, but to clarify your own mind. When you teach something, the gaps in your knowledge are revealed. Your articulation becomes more precise. Your understanding deepens. And most importantly, you become an authority, not by claiming, but by conveying real value. The mastery mindset means every person, a living book, every conversation, an experiment, every mistake, data, every success, a sign of the right path. In this mindset, you are never finished. And precisely because of that, you become stronger every day. And this is the final secret of powerful communication. A true master always remains a student. If you stayed with me until now, it means that something inside you has already awakened, because people who aren't going to change never end up. This audiobook wasn't supposed to entertain you. It wasn't supposed to just teach you interesting things. This audiobook was made for one thing: to stop talking like you used to, no longer being heard like you used to, and to stop being ignored like you used to. From this moment on, you are the one in charge of your communication, not your personality, neither your past, neither those around you. Now you know why some people take over the space with a single sentence, and some people disappear with 10 minutes of talk. Why some people's silence is respected, and some people's voices are ignored. Why some people's presence is felt, even before they speak. And this knowledge, if practiced, is power. Remember, communication mastery doesn't mean playing a role. It means being your authentic self, no longer hiding it. Every conversation, from now on, is a practice. Every conversation, a field for growth. Every reaction from others is a living feedback. And one day, without you realizing it, you'll notice people are looking at you before making a decision. They wait for your reaction before speaking. And when you talk, they listen. This is the end of the audiobook, but if you use it correctly, it's the beginning of a new version of you, a version that is present, that makes an impression, and is not forgettable. And now go, speak, and let the world know who it is on